no NFL team upgraded as much as we did.
I
So
tell you what,
maybe the fact that we made those free agent signings, Pete,
yep,
was one of the reasons we stopped hearing Caleb Williams and his camp complain about going to the Bears, because the Bears weren't the worst team in the league last year. They got that by virtue of the trade with Carolina that made one of the worst trades in history, going for Bryce Young over C.J. Stroud. They wanted to move up, so they gave the Bears their couple first-round picks, Pete. Well, our buddy David Tepper, not as smart as he thought. But that certainly helped the Bears build a much better team, starting with last year and now into this year. And then you talk about free agents. I think Colin is exactly right, Pete.
I think they have upgraded in a big way. I think Detroit actually has upgraded in a big way. I think the Minnesota Vikings have done well. I think Green Bay has done well. I think it's going to be a very competitive division. I mean, that North is going to be pretty stacked up. Now, does it mean that they're going to be perfect and they're going to have like this playoff run and everything else? I'm not so sure about that, because any rookie quarterback, it's always difficult. Once in a while, they get that something going, but it's going to be a little bit of a challenge because, as we know, John, what is it? I think about 18% of first-round draft pick quarterbacks actually have success. I mean, it's just underneath 20% or something like that. So could Caleb be great? He could. Are the odds against him? Yeah, the odds are against him, because I just told you it's only 18% of them. And we had 6 quarterbacks go pretty early in this draft. So 1 or 2 of them probably will have success, and then the rest probably not. And we've seen that time and time again. Just think Sam Darnold, 3rd pick in the draft to the Jets a few years ago, and he's already on his 4th team with the Minnesota Vikings. But anyway, how about a little bit of sports, John? And why don't we hit the baseball side of it just for a second? Major League Baseball, I find to be very, very interesting, and I've got something sort of shocking for you probably. So I was looking, because I always find this curious. People think money buys everything, right? Money buys victories, money buys this, money buys that. It's really not all that true, especially when it comes to Major League Baseball. So how about this little bit of a shocker, so to speak. Baltimore, there are 30 baseball teams in MLB, okay? Baltimore has number 27 in payroll. They're 19-10. Cleveland is number 28 in payroll. They're 19-10. These 2 teams right now are some of the best teams in all of baseball. As a matter of fact, if you're just kind of wondering, Baltimore is in front of the Yankees. You know why? Because they beat them in the last 2 games. They beat them 2-0, and they beat them 4-2. And they've got 1 more coming up. So there's a lot going on. Now, here's the one difference. When you look at Baltimore, it's all because of bats. They're number 1 with home runs. They're number 2 in RBIs. When I look at Cleveland, they're just doing it all on the pitching side. Their ERAs, their strikeouts, they're only giving up 26 home runs total. I mean, they're doing everything right on the defensive side of the ball, if you want to say that about baseball. So I find it really interesting. But on top of all that, John, kind of hidden behind the scenes a little bit, because everybody's talking about the gambling issue. How about Ohtani? I think Shohei Ohtani is still playing pretty well. And, he's not pitching this year because he's got to rest that arm, do all this stuff. But 19 RBIs, 7 home runs. He's top 10 in batting average. He's only batting .336. I mean, the guy is doing absolutely everything. And, John, of their first 5 batters, 4 of them are batting over 300 right now for the Dodgers. So I'm kind of going on both sides of it, because the Dodgers have a pretty big payroll. But I can tell you this, they're actually getting production out of what they're paying out there. But it makes it fun. I know you and I kind of kick around baseball. I was a little tough on your Sox last week. But maybe that was rightfully so, actually, because they're still struggling. So what do you think about this whole thing on the money side? What do you think about it in baseball?
Well, how about this, Pete? The White Sox payroll is $116 million. That's below the minimum for the major leagues, which are the average, I guess I should say. But they penalize teams if you don't spend the money.
Yep.
Now, the Oakland Athletics, they're the lowest, like you said, 47,000 payroll. It's almost, 6 times higher with the whatchamacallit, the New York Yankees, 290 mil, New York Mets, 283. The reason some of those teams pay isn't just to win, Pete. It's to put butts in the seats.
Yep.
Because, that gate is your gate, meaning the people pay going through the turnstiles. That's your money. Those, skyboxes and everything else that both of those New York teams can sell. Then you look at things like you said, Baltimore, 91 million. So in other words, the Yankees and the Mets have triple their payroll, triple. And they're not winning in nearly the same fashion. So you're right. Moneyball is right. It doesn't matter about payroll. It matters about on-base percentage. It matters on how you do with a runner in scoring position and all that kind of stuff. And then if you have really good pitching, like you said, they have clearly at Cleveland so far, that helps an awful lot.
Yeah, it's awesome. I'll tell you what, each year, John, I just take a look at payrolls and, there's always a couple of teams. Tampa Bay's been one of them. They usually don't pay very much. They've done really well over the last couple of years. Baltimore's a great example. Cleveland's another one. Oakland's the one they've just given up. I mean, until they get to Las Vegas, I think they've just said, the hell with it. I mean, honestly, nobody's coming. Well, they never came before anyway. We're leaving like everybody else who's in Oakland. I mean, you got the Raiders, they're over there. You got the A's, they're going over there. So it's everybody's leaving the Bay Area, John. Unfortunately, that's not so fun. All right, how about this one? Jim Harbaugh. He is building something like we have not seen, except for with Jim Harbaugh in the past, where he built up a program at San Diego. He built up a program with Stanford. He built up a program with the 49ers. All he did was bring him to the Super Bowl. Then he goes back to Michigan. He's up there always towards that upper end for something. And then this year, they get the national title, right? I mean, they do it all. So what I like about what Jim Harbaugh is doing is he's old school, and he's absolutely building his team the way he wants to build it. And obviously, when he had his conversations with them, they must have said, all right, well, what do you want to do? What would you do differently? And he's going to probably say, everything I've done in the past is what I'm going to do here. I'm going to get tight ends. I'm going to get running backs. I got a great quarterback already, so we don't even have to worry about that. We're going to build up that defense. We still got Khalil Mack. We've got all these guys, right? I mean, this is a loaded team that only won 5 games last year. And why was that? Well, probably needed some help on the offensive line. Okay, bingo. You just got the best offensive lineman maybe in the last 5 or 10 years in Joe Alt. And he'll be there for the next 5 or 10 years playing right tackle, John. They drafted in defensive side. They drafted 4 guys in the 3rd round. They got one. The 4th round, they got one. The 5th round, they've got 2 more. They've got a couple of cornerbacks. They've really fortified everything, but here's the best part. They love tight ends. He loves tight ends. He will have an offense out there with 3 tight ends almost exclusively, right? This is the NFL. He doesn't care. He's going to do it his way, like the 49ers, like when he was there. Zach Hines from South Dakota State, John, they just signed him up. And a couple of weeks ago, we were talking about South Dakota State and all these players they put in the NFL. This kid's 6'7", 260. He's an absolute freak show athlete, tight end. And who just signed him? Well, Jim Harbaugh just signed him as a free agent. And this kid is going to be a freak. And then when I looked at the roster, they've got 6 tight ends right now on the roster, John. So he's going back to the football that he plays, that he played as a quarterback. This is Bo Schembechler all over again. What do you think? Will it work? I say yes.
Oh, yeah, it'll work. Because there's, again, I'm stealing from Pete, folks, but there's so many teams that went super lightweight with fast linebackers to cover rather than to be able to get up in there and make tackles at the line of scrimmage. Mm-hmm. There are a few that can do that, and they are thumpers and they stand out. But there's an awful lot of guys that are playing at like 220, 225, Pete. And, that's manna from heaven for some of these teams like the one Harbaugh is putting together, because they're going to grind it at you. And then Justin Herbert's going to get pulled back after he does the fake sprint draw or whatever else. and he's going to throw it downfield, and the linebackers are going to be sucked in. There'll be no help in the secondary. And I think that'll make the same sort of impact it made at Michigan.
Yeah.
So I don't think you can treat pros the same way you can treat college kids, even if they're getting NIL money. But I think Jim knows that. He's been in the pro game before. So I think he's going to basically make his offense, he's going to put a mark on the NFL with this offense, I think, Pete.
Yeah. Well, and you know what else doesn't hurt? He's got a guy that I don't know if Harbaugh ever got a chance to throw to Jerry Rice, but he's got Jerry Rice's son on his team from USC as well. So, I mean, they've got McConkey, they've got him, they've got, some of the players that they've drafted in previous years, Quentin Johnson from SMU or TCU rather. So, I mean, there are some ballers on that team, so they can still throw the football. It's not like they're going to completely abandon throwing because they got one of the best quarterbacks in all of football, but it should be pretty interesting to watch him use his style of football against a bunch of teams, to your point, with 220-pound linebackers. Good luck, guys. It's going to be a lot of fun. Nothing like our guy that you're going to have the video of for tomorrow, John. We're going to have
the linebacker from North Carolina State, Pete.
Yeah, that guy's a freak.
We're going to show that one. And by the way, Pete, South Dakota State University, SDSU, they have become like a tight end printing press. Yes. They've got tight ends coming out, going into the pros. And that is a team that I wish, I'd never really wanted to live in South Dakota, Pete. But I might travel there to see some games because that is an exciting football team. I mean, they are doing things right at SDSU. I would love to see what they're going to do this year, but I suspect we all sort of know they're going to win.
I'll tell you what, they got a great governor. Anyway, all right.